Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Tech Talk today, focused on simplifying your cloud transformation with VMware Cloud on AWS. My name is Arti Raju, and I lead our solutions architecture team at AWS, helping our customers and partners like you accelerate cloud migrations. Joining me today is Elvis Papachin, solutions architect focused on VMware Cloud on AWS. As you are thinking about cloud transformation or accelerating your migrations to the cloud, you probably are wondering, how do I do this quickly without impacting my business? What we wanted to share today is how you, as a customer, can take advantage of VMware Cloud on AWS in your journey to the cloud. We'll also show you how your business can take advantage during this transformation and modernize your applications and seeing the immediate value and results. We have some fun demos planned for you so you can see how easy this really is. So let's get started. I've been on this specific project for almost 5 years now, and as we began helping some of our customers like you in this transformation journey, there were a couple of key challenges. Businesses wanted to move quicker without re-architecting or refactoring their applications, using the same tooling that they are used to in on-premises or skill sets. Majority of these customers had VMware workloads running on-premises. And we want to solve for these challenges and partnered with VMware to build a solution for our customers that can help them migrate quickly and accelerate these migrations. These solutions, as you can see here, were aimed at specific use cases, and these are based on what we saw from you as customers. Starting with data center extension to help you expand your footprint quickly in the cloud in a region that you want without changes to your application. So we have customers like Playtika, for example, who took advantage of the on-demand capacity to grow their business. The next is disaster recovery. Every business that is there wants to make sure they have a DR plan in place, so they're protected against any failures. And no matter if you're looking to build new disaster recovery sites or existing your older one because you have an infrastructure refresh coming up, disaster recovery stands as a popular use case with our customers. Cloud migrations use case by far is our largest use case. This goes with a number of companies looking at migrating to the cloud or have a hybrid strategy or looking at a complete infrastructure refresh. We have had customers like PennyMac, for example, who migrated all their VDI workloads to the cloud and were able to scale well during this pandemic. And finally, a number of customers are also looking to take this opportunity during migrations to modernize their application as they go through this process. All of this is available to you as customers across the 17 AWS regions today, with the security and compliance your business needs, for example, HIPAA or GDPR, and very recently with the launch of PCI compliance. As we take a closer look at the service itself, you can see here, when we built the service jointly engineered with VMware, we wanted to make sure we give you the exact same building blocks you're already familiar with: vSphere, vSAN, and NSX with vCenter on top of the AWS infrastructure, and giving you the ability to integrate with on-premises applications seamlessly, and at the same time to native AWS services, because remember we talked about modernization. So taking advantage of the native AWS services that are available. You as a customer, when you have your on-premises environments running, we wanted to make sure you have a single pane of glass between your on-premises and what you're running in the cloud. And VMware Cloud on AWS enables you to do so. So as we get into the details of each layer, and starting with infrastructure here, all the building blocks are packaged into what we call the VMware Software Defined Data Center, SDDC, that you can choose to deploy in a region of your choice. And this takes approximately less than 2 hours, depending on the number of hosts. And then adding hosts can take less than 10 minutes. Think about this. This is a huge change from what you probably are used to in an on-premises environment, like planning in advance for adding hosts, etc. You can also take advantage of deploying across availability zones so your workload is protected. At AWS, we do say failures can happen anytime. We wanted to make sure your workload is well protected. With the stretch cluster feature, you can deploy your hosts across two availability zones, and both of these availability zones are within a region so that in case an availability zone fails, you still have data and everything runs as usual in the other availability zone. Moving on to compute. So this is the hypervisor you're familiar with. So this is ESXi running on top of our bare metal instances. There's no nested virtualization or anything. Today we have two instance types, i3.metal and i3en.metal. And you can choose which one you want depending on your core size, memory, and storage needs. And then if you look at the storage side of things, vSAN helps with the storage virtualization. And these instances we talked have NVMe all-flash storage that can help you for your high-performance workloads. And then we've got the networking side of things. NSX is built into the solution and is able to help you with connectivity side of things. For example, as you think about connecting your SDDC to your on-premises environment or thinking about doing microsegmentation, etc. The important thing to remember is all of these building blocks we talked about are packaged into a solution. You don't have to manage this. This is managed by VMware, so you don't have to worry about updating these or patching hosts, etc. All this heavy lifting is taken off of your hands, and VMware manages this for you. One of the most important architectural considerations as you think about like migrating is ensuring you have proper connectivity in place. With your on-premises environment, you can connect to the VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC simply using a VPN connection or using AWS Direct Connect, which provides you dedicated bandwidth that you can choose, either a 1 gig, 10 gig, or some of our larger bandwidth that got launched recently for these large-scale migrations. This is important because as you think about migrating quicker, we want to make sure you are connected well between your on-premises and VMware Cloud on AWS. Elvis later in the talk will also go over some tools that can help you like Hybrid Cloud Extension or vMotion, which you're probably familiar on. How do you use these to migrate from on-premises to VMC? As you look at scaling connectivity, one common question that we get is, hey, we've got multiple sites, we've got multiple SDDCs. How do we ensure we have a simplified connectivity model? So in order to provide this simplified connectivity model, we built VMware Transit Connect, which is based out of the AWS Transit Gateway. So the Transit Gateway, think of it as a central hub that allows you to connect all your SDDCs, your on-premises sites that you have, and also your VPCs that you might be running natively in AWS today. So this central hub takes care of that routing for you, so you don't have to go in and modify or take care of any like complicated routing on your side. This is managed, and so it removes that overhead from you. With that said, I'd like to hand off to Elvis to transition to the migration tools that are available to you and how you can take advantage of them.
Thank you, Arthi. VMware Cloud on AWS gives customers a faster and easier migration path. Let's take a look at the add-on services and demonstrate migrating a workload to VMware Cloud on AWS. Before we go into the demonstration, we just wanted to bring up two add-on services, VMware Site Recovery and VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery. Both are add-on services that are charged per use. The third add-on service that we also wanted to bring up is Hybrid Cloud Extension, or HCX. This is actually included with an SDDC deployment. For the demonstration today, we're going to actually migrate a VM from our on-premise customer data center into VMware Cloud on AWS. We've already set up HCX in our SDDC and have deployed an HCX connector to our on-premise vCenter. We've also connected the two environments over a direct connect. There's also an HCX interconnect that actually extends our on-premise network into the SDDC itself. This allows the VM to maintain its IP address and network configuration. We also have the ability with this now connection to migrate the VM back if there is a need. But during this demonstration, we're just going to demonstrate from on-premise to SDDC. Let's get started. As you can see, we have our on-premise vCenter, just like we did in the architecture, on the left-hand side browser. And on the right-hand side, we actually have our vCenter in the SDDC environment. We have our folder that we're going to be deploying or migrating the VM to. And on the left-hand side, we have the folder that we'll be migrating from. We also have already SSH'd into the VM that we're going to migrate. As you can see, it's active and running. We're going to go ahead and run top to show that the resources are being utilized. We're also going to create a quick text file to demonstrate that this VM is actually active and we're actually in the right VM. We'll go ahead and finish entering the text and we'll exit. Now let's go to the VM that we're actually going to be migrating. We're going to go ahead and actually console in. This is through the website. It's a web interface. We're going to console directly into the VM. As you can see, we're actually in that VM. It's the same name. We're going to go to the root where we created the file. We're going to list it, and as you can see, the test.log file is what we created just a few minutes ago. Let's go ahead and actually look at that text file, and you'll see it's the entry that we put in. We're also going to start an actual ping to this VM. We're going to ping the IP address that's actually listed in vCenter, just the 10.1.10.49. This will be a continuous ping through the entire process. The VM is actually also running a web service. And we'll actually pull that up and show the web interface. Let's go ahead and start that migration. We're going to right-click on that VM. And we're actually just going to scroll down to HCX Actions and hit Migrate. This is the interface that will pop up immediately. We're actually going to select that first selection. As you can see, the vCenter on the SDDC matches up. And that's what we want to select. So we'll select that. And we have an option to actually add additional VMs. But for this scenario, we're actually going to leave it as it is. So let's expand the screen just for a minute. And we're going to cancel that. As you can see, that's the VM that we selected. And we're going to migrate. Transfer and placement requires you to have these settings selected. We want to make sure we select the right resource pool, the destination folder that we want to send it to. And this is actually the folder that we originally displayed on the right-hand browser. That's located within the SDDC. So we're actually going to scroll down and we're going to locate that folder. It's actually the Lab 1 HCX Demo VM. Once we have it selected, we'll hit Select. And that'll close out. Now we need to select the storage. For this VMware environment, the SDDC, we have to select Workload Data Store. So we select that, hit Select. We're actually going to keep the same format, but you do have the option to select thick, eager or lazy, and thin provision. There are a few migration profile options. We have vMotion that allows you to do that seamless vMotion. We could do bulk migration, even replicated assisted vMotion. And there's more details on VMware's site on what those each individual options are and the requirements around each one. For this particular demonstration, we're actually going to select vMotion. Then we're actually going to schedule. Now you do have the option to select to schedule this earlier or later in the process, or you can actually do it now. We're actually going to do the migration right now without waiting. So we're actually going to select Ignore Failover Window and hit Close. You also have the option to remove snapshots and unmount ISOs. Even you have extended options to upgrade the virtual hardware, VMware tools, even deactivate EVC. But we want this VM to be migrated back, which actually uses a slightly older version of VMware vCenter than we do in the SDDC. Once we've selected everything, we want to validate. And once it's validated and successful, we want to hit save and then go. Once we hit go, as you can see, the migration is actually queued now. We're going to hit close to close the window. And we're going to actually save and close the window to make sure that the actual job is saved and we're able to monitor it. Once it's saved, we'll go ahead and minimize the browser window for our on-premise vCenter. And let's actually view what the migration looks like now. So if we go to the migration section, you'll notice that we have our vCenter that we selected on our on-premise environment and the SDDC. And this is the job that we actually started. Let's expand the screen just a little bit and we'll show you the full scope of the job itself. It's a VM transfer which is in progress. The base synchronization is occurring, and this is the VM that we actually selected to migrate over to the SDDC. We'll shrink the window back down, and we'll actually start a top session within the VM itself to demonstrate that the VM is actually live and running. And we also have our ping that's still occurring on the left-hand side. If we scroll to the right, we can see that the status is actually a base sync. This is actually copying the base files over initially. Very similar to what a vMotion on-premise would be doing. This is actually doing a base copy, and then it'll do the synchronization and final synchronization of the data files. In the interest of time, we're going to speed this process up just a little bit here to ensure that we are able to see the final steps in the migration process. So we've sped up the process just a little bit. If we wait just a second, we'll notice that the sync actually will jump to 33%. That's usually the first stage. Once it jumps to 33%, the next is just copying the final stages. But as you can see on the left-hand side, on the ping actually increased from 1 to 2 milliseconds to 4 milliseconds. This is that last stage where it's doing the final copy, and it's actually moved the VM over. But as you can see, the SSH session never changes. And on the row folder that we have on the vCenter and the SDDC on the right-hand browser, you'll notice that that VM is actually now part of that folder, which is that lab1 web server 01 alpha-hcx. This is the HCX migration example. Now let's take a look at how you can realize benefits immediately. There are several immediate benefits, including your managed services that's part of the VMware Cloud and AWS, where VMware manages your environment, your hardware, and software upgrades. You have the operational consistency like you would with your on-premise vCenter environment. You have the ability to move your VMs from your on-premise VMware environment to the VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC, and you have the ability to do native integrations into native AWS services like FSx, EFS, Active Directory, or even S3. There's also the option to do application modernization, where you can actually use AWS services to modernize your existing applications, which we'll go into in a later demonstration. For this demo, we'll look at the FSx for Windows connection into an existing VM within your SDDC. We have our connection from our VM over the ENI into the AWS attached VPC. From there, we have connections to different services, FSx for this case, but also you have the connection to S3, EFS, and other services. For this demonstration, we'll actually focus in on the FSx and one of the VMs in particular. If we go into the network and security section, this is actually the configuration for the SDDC we'll be demonstrating. In the segments, part of the network and security, this is actually your subnets. We already have a deployed network segment for this VM that we'll be testing with. The other parts that we want to look at is actually the connected VPC section. This is actually the information on the attached AWS VPC. So you can see we have our account ID and even our VPC ID. This is important as we'll be able to tell if the connectivity is actually live. If we go into the overview section, this is actually where you can actually see the connection. We have our management gateway and our compute gateway. We have multiple connections into this environment. We have our internet connection, our VPN, and our direct connect as well. We have our infrastructure subnets as well as our workload subnets that are deployed. The one that we want to look at is actually the connected VPC connection at the bottom. Let's zoom in though. If we zoom in, we'll notice that the VPC ID is exactly the same as what we had in the connected VPC section of the network and security of the SDDC. This is where that workload VM is actually communicating to the attached AWS VPC. Let's log into our AWS account now. As you can see, this is the account ID that we're going to be using, and we're going to deploy an FSx instance into. We have a IAM role and a user account that's already been added to this account. We're going to go ahead and log in, and once the management console log opens up, we'll see our options for AWS VPC. We're going to go into the FSx section where we actually already have an FSx instance deployed. This is just in the interest of time and the size of the FSx instance we have deployed right now. The main things that we want to look at is actually the DNS name and the server IP. We're going to use this later in the demonstration. Let's go ahead and actually minimize this window, and we'll copy both the DNS and the IP address to the notepad. Now let's actually log into the vCenter of the SDDC. Once we log in, we'll actually log into the vCenter itself, where we can see the VM that we'll be actually demonstrating on. We have multiple VMs, but the Windows server is actually what we want to log into. It's already been added to our domain, and we're actually going to open up a console directly into it. Once we have that open, we'll log in locally to this VM. Once we're logged in, we have our desktop. We have a files to copy folder that we've already created, and we have about 6.7 gigabytes of files in this particular folder. We're going to go ahead and open up a separate File Explorer window. And we'll put that on the right-hand side. This window we'll use to actually access the FSx instance that we deployed. We'll go ahead and enter the name as we have it. Once we have it, we'll open it up and we'll access the share folder. This is actually the main folder that we store all of our shares or folders into. Let's go ahead and create a new folder. We'll go ahead and give it a name. We'll go ahead and open it up. And we're going to use Terracopy actually to perform the copy. This will actually show us the actual performance over that ENI connection. We'll go ahead and select our source file, or source folder in this case, because we want to copy the entire content. Once we have the folder selected, we'll actually select a target now. And the target will actually be the FSx instance. We already have it entered, but we'll go ahead and select it from this list. Once we have it selected, both will appear here. And then we can actually just hit copy. Once the copy starts, you'll start seeing the files start to appear in the folder on the right-hand side, which is our FSx instance. And you can also see the performance that's going over that ENI connection. You can also see that some of the files have already started copying over, about 1.5 gigabytes at this time. This takes a few minutes depending on the size of the files and the amount of files that you have to copy over. This is just one method, and there are multiple ways to actually do this. AWS has a data sync option as well, which is recommended to copy large amounts of files to an FSx instance. We'll go ahead and let the copy continue. We'll go ahead and expand this folder, and then we'll see that this is actually the full path to that folder where all the files are being copied into. Let's go ahead and create a text file just as a test to demonstrate that files can be also created here based on the permissions you have. Go ahead and save it, exit. Then we're going to go ahead and actually go to the IP address that we had documented earlier, just to demonstrate that you can actually access it by your DNS name or even an IP address if you wanted to give it a different DNS name internally within your environment. As you can see, the file is still there. So it's the same exact share as we did with the DNS name or the IP address. Let's go ahead and go back to the DNS name for this demonstration. Let's go ahead and delete that test file. We don't need it anymore, so we'll go ahead and get rid of it. Let's go back into this folder. And as you can see, 9 items are already in there. There's also one other advantage of this. Since this is a Windows file share, you can actually map this as a network drive like you do currently in your environment. Same process, you would map. Or if you have a login script or a method to map within group policy within your Active Directory environment, you can actually add this as a new path. Hit finish, and you'll see now we have a Z drive that's mapped to the FSx instance. Let's go ahead and go to your PC, and you'll notice that share. And the name is exactly the same as what we have deployed. And all the files that we copied are actually accessible as well from there. And all of the files have finished copying, as you can see. And it's as simple as that if you're using FSx to do that copy. Let's take a look at AWS services and tools that can be used to modernize that VMware workload that's now been migrated to your VMware Cloud on AWS SDDC. But we got to ask ourselves, why are customers choosing to build modern applications? Customers want the ability to go faster to market. They want to be able to have that increased innovation by using AWS services. They want to reduce the cost as well and just pay for those services or products that they really use. And they want more reliable applications by utilizing AWS's well-architected framework. For this demonstration, we're actually going to take a look at an HR VM that's been migrated into an SDDC. Then we're going to actually look at how to migrate that into an AWS RDS for the database piece, as this is a monolithic application where both the website and the database are on one server. Let's go ahead and log in to the SDDC vCenter that we have deployed and where we've migrated that HR VM into already. We'll log in using our credentials into vCenter. Once we log in, we have the actual HR VM selected. It's on the subnet that we want to be in. And the subnet and our attached VPC have the necessary firewall rules on the SDDC side and the security group rules already applied. We're going to go ahead and log in locally. And as we can see, we have our SQL Management Studio loaded and open to access the database that's local to the server, as well as the website for the HR. As you can see, it's displaying current employees and the employee data. Let's go ahead and log in locally to the database. We have an account that's available that's configured for this database server. Once we log in, we can see the database. We're going to open up the tables that are there. And the website is actually using the employees table. Let's go ahead and open that up to show the data and that it matches up. As you can see, employee ID 100 matches up to what's in the database table itself. Just to demonstrate that it is actual live data, we'll actually update one of the users or one of the employees. We'll change Stephen to Bill. As you can see, the cell has been modified. Now, typically, the update is immediate, but web browsers may not update the information correctly. So let's see if we can refresh the screen to show the update. We'll also close the table and reopen it to show that the update has been completed. Let's go back to the website and refresh one more time. As you can see, the update is complete and we show the updated name. Just to do one additional test to show that the database is connected to this website, let's go ahead and take this website offline. By actually taking the database offline, we should see that the website is not able to access the database anymore. And what we should see is a database error. If we give it just a second or two, the web browser will try and attempt to connect to the website and then the website to the database. As you can see, cannot connect to the database. Let's go ahead and bring the database back online. Once we do this, and it's successfully online, we'll be able to refresh the website and we show that the site and the data come up automatically. Let's go ahead and revert the name back to Stephen so we don't forget. Once we do that, we can actually go back to the table, employees table that we had open earlier. And if we edit it, we'll see that employee 100 has been renamed back to Stephen. Once we do this, we want to make sure that we set up the new database because we want to migrate the local database to an AWS RDS instance. We have our RDS database in this scenario deployed already. This is actually a SQL Express edition just for this demonstration, but there are multiple versions of SQL Server or even MySQL instances that you can deploy in RDS. What we want to document is actually the endpoint name as well as the port that is opened up to it. As you can see, that's the name. We'll go ahead and copy that name into a notepad, so we'll need that later in the demonstration. Once we do this, we'll need to actually log in to the database that's in AWS RDS. Let's go ahead and log in. And we have a separate login for that we created previously. Once we log in to that database, the database will open and we'll expand the databases just to show that there's no additional databases in there except for the default one that gets deployed. As you can see, the names match up. The next step is actually to set up the database migration service. This is actually the AWS service that allows you to migrate SQL or other database services from your SDDC or on-premise environment to AWS RDS. In the interest of time, we want to speed up the DMS, database migration service process. The steps that you typically would take is you would create the SQL instance in Amazon RDS, which we've already done. We will set up the DMS replication instance, and then a source endpoint, and a target endpoint as well. Once those are done, we'll actually create a replication task. This is actually what copies and migrates the data from that SDDC vCenter database to the Amazon RDS. Once the actual migration is complete, or that copy and migration is complete, you can actually perform additional steps to clean up your on-premise environment. Let's take a look at the vCenter. We're going to go ahead and console back into that VM that we had open earlier. As you can see, the database is actually copied now to the Amazon RDS instance. We'll look at the tables, and it's exactly the same tables as we have on the local database. And if we refresh the website, it refreshes and loads the local database data. But let's take this one step further. Let's go ahead and do the cleanup that we were talking about earlier. We're going to take the database offline, drop all the active connections, and we're going to refresh the website. Once we refresh the website, it should error out. While that's actually refreshing, trying to connect to the database, let's actually go to the folder where the local IIS application is stored in. As you can see on the back browser, the database is erroring out, and that's what we expected to see. We're in the IIS application itself. We're going to copy the Amazon RDS server name, and we're going to edit the web config file that stores the database for this demonstration. We're going to find the local host data source that's listed here. Once we locate it, we'll replace it with the Amazon RDS name. Once we do that, we're also going to update the username. As we've created a new username completely for this particular database server, we want to use that new name. Once we do that, we'll save and exit out. But let's make sure that that new username is actually able to access this database. So we'll right-click and go to the properties, and we'll check the permissions. As you can see, demo user 2 is part of this database. Go ahead and cancel out. And now we'll actually refresh the website altogether. As you can see, it loads right up. Let's actually update the data now. We edit the employees table. We'll be able to see that the change occurs immediately, but we're going to actually do it on the website now. So we're going to actually edit that first user. We'll change the first name. We could change the last name, but for this demonstration, we'll just keep it the same. What we will do, though, is update the email address to show that multiple tables or multiple columns and rows can be changed. Go ahead and update it on the website. Refresh the page if we want, but in this scenario, we won't need to because the data is already active and live. We'll close the table and we'll reopen it to demonstrate that the update has occurred. Let's go ahead and refresh the page one more time. And nothing changes, right? The data is updated both on the table and the website is actually able to retrieve it as well. And that completes the demonstration of actually migrating or modernizing your applications to AWS services. The next step that you could typically take is actually migrating the IIS application into a containerized service as well. As a next step, we recommend that you understand how VMware Cloud on AWS can fit into your cloud strategy. Have a conversation with AWS, a partner who specializes in VMware Cloud on AWS. Or consider even a pilot of VMware Cloud on AWS with workloads that you might use for your customer or yourself. Thank you for your time today, and we hope you enjoyed the session and the demonstration.